Aloha, this is Lynn Finnegan of the Hawaii Public Charter Schools Network. Aloha to you on this Aloha Friday. This week is February 6, 2015, and I just have to apologize ahead of time that I had to uh, alter our usual live webinar update, legislative update, and do a recorded one and share the access link with you due to some schedule changes and possibility of internet and internet connectivity. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring you through the HPCSN legislative update for this week. I am traveling from Hawaii and then going to a National Alliance of Public Charter Schools, several events next week. Okay, so today we're going to be going over the bills that are being heard, and that's a really good sign. There are a lot of charter school bills, but in the hectic legislative session timing of things, not a lot of bills do get to even the first part, which is being heard. So we're thankful for that. The second agenda item is HPCSN's collective bargaining bill. As you know, it was heard earlier this week. It's HB 678. And we've got some real promising and exciting opportunities regarding this bill. And we've planned out a new plan of action. The third thing is just kind of giving you some of my observations as time has moved on in this short couple of weeks at the legislative session, and just wanted to share some of my observations on legislators and their views on charter schools. Okay, this is not an all-inclusive list, but I thought that this would be a good way to kind of see what's moving in the state House and the state Senate. Here are some of the bills and the subject matter of the bills that are being heard. Again, this is a really good sign, knowing that charter school bills are being heard, and it looks like, especially if you see them being heard on both sides, meaning the House and the Senate, in both chambers, committees, that that they have a good chance of continuing its progress forward throughout the session. So on the Senate side, in the Education Committee, we've had the Facilities GO Bonds bill. That's a bill that basically temporarily sets up allocation of GO bonds, or general obligation bonds, and we're also seeing that that bill is going to be heard on the House Education side. This will help with, this is borrowed money. General obligations bonds is borrowed money, and basically it can fund projects, and a lot of the times the projects can only be on state land, but the particular verbiage in this bill may allow for some discussion regarding how you might be able to fund potentially other properties that are not on state land. The second bill is a pretty straightforward bill that is being heard in both chambers committees, and that is the Facilities General Fund bill. And basically it's just allocating general funds for projects for charter school facilities projects. Our testimony has basically been, this is a great idea, but we would also like to see language in the bill that not only funds projects, but potentially could fund, a certain amount if you're leasing or renting facilities, that it might be a pot of money that can go toward rental and lease payments. So I know that the legislature wasn't keen on that idea, but it is something that I thought would be good to include in testimony. On the third line here, we have Community Kitchen and Special Fund. That's a Tokura bill. And it's basically seeing the commonality, and I think it's a Tokura Commission bill, actually. It's seeing the common need for food program support and facilities. I believe that's why they focused it on the community kitchen idea. And that's moving in the Senate or being heard in the Senate. And on the House side, on line 4, we have the HPCSN facilities bill. What this is actually regarding the facilities geo bonds bill and the facilities general funds bill. This particular bill from HPCSN just is like the papa of them all, because it asks for a lot more. I believe the facilities geo bonds bill is a temporary allocation, and it's kind of piloting and testing things out. And HPCSN's bill is about establishing annual appropriations to general funds as well as general obligation bonds of the general obligation bonds, and creating the same task force, or not task force, but working group to prioritize with criteria the projects that it funds, or the allocation, the disbursement of the money. So I call it the pop-up bill of all facilities bills, because it kind of incorporates everything and actually expands it. It's good to see that the House is willing to take a look at that bill. Hopefully we'll see either that bill moving forward on the House side, or at least the, both the geo bonds bills and the general funds bills moving on both the House and Senate side. ETO's bill, the Charter School Facilities Tax Credit, that's another, helpful bill to have, and that's being heard on Monday. Nakashima has this idea that repealing part of Act 51 is the part that says, instead of separating DAGs, instead of in Act 51, it transferred all of the facilities management from DAGs, the Department of Accounting and General Services, over to DOE. And that was Act 51's effort to bring everything into DOE so that they would have control over it. And then Superintendent Pat Hush, oh my gosh, I can't remember her last name. You know who she is. She said, if you did this and you transferred everything to the DOE, hold her accountable. So anyway, over time, little bits and pieces have been transferred back to the different departments, and this is Nakashima's idea to move DOE facilities back to DAGs so that it can be all under one umbrella, and he is hoping that that also can help charters. And I don't quite understand how it does, but he was convinced that that's a way to do a better job of getting facilities help for charters. That is something that I will write testimony in support for this upcoming Monday's legislative hearing. Okay, so the next one is a commission special fund. It sounds like it's a good idea. I'm not quite understanding what it's trying to accomplish. So I did not submit testimony, or HPCSN did not submit testimony on it. It is not being heard on the House side. I'm not sure if it has a companion bill or a bill that looks basically exactly the same but is introduced in both houses. And I didn't see it on the House side. So we'll see if that moves forward on the Senate side. But I still have to learn more about how that works. Okay, so on both sides, this is an indication that they're really planning on moving this forward as well, which is setting up the or changing the law so that when there is a notice of school closure, or changing the law that when a school is being closed because of health and safety issues or financial insolvency, that's an automatic voluntary school closure. And then the bill also sets up closure protocols. There are already some closure protocols that have been adopted by the commission, but it just reiterates that there needs to be closure protocols. I'll talk a little bit more about the, pressure or the continuing the need to build credibility with legislators in the next slide. But this looks like HPCSN is holding off right now and not necessarily testifying on this particular issue yet. But that was introduced and asked to be heard by the commission, and it's being heard on both sides, the House and the Senate. The next bill that is being heard both in the House and Senate, and of course, these two bills, both voluntary closure, school closure, as well as the geographic exception post, that's supposed to say post notice of closure, are bills that have to deal with the experiences that the commission is going through with halal o kahi. And so the geographic exception post notice of closure, this is basically like once a notice of closure is given to the school, that that the students are able to go to their traditional or DOE public school of choice. We did submit testimony on that basically just says, in the unfortunate circumstance that a school is forced to close, that every opportunity should be made to students that, need to find another school to go to. On the Senate side, there are two important bills that will be that are being heard on the Senate Education Committees, or in the Senate Education Committees. One is the emergency funding for Kuokala and Haas, and we submitted testimony in strong support, and just helping them to understand that we don't have a safety net for these types of emergencies, and that both schools are in real need of emergency appropriations. ULS's admissions and enrollment policy issue. There is a bill on the Senate side that will be heard next week, and this is to address ULS's more like affirmative action type of admissions policy regarding, race, and socioeconomics, that sort of thing. So I know that the commission had seemed very supportive of it, but they felt that their hands were handcuffed to be able to approve their policy. And so this is the legislative effort that is happening to see what they can do around changing or allowing ULS's admission and enrollments policy. The commission has some cleanup bills. I still need to talk to Tom about what these accomplish. It seems pretty straightforward. I'm sure it has to do with in my first read, I'm sure it has to do with more application stuff as they're going through approving applications and startups of these schools, and just ways that it can define or clean up some of the areas of process that can be improved upon. Okay, some other bills that are being heard in the House and Senate committees. One was on teacher tenure. I really don't think there was an issue that we had to speak up for charter schools, but what we did identify is an actual opportunity to correct the law, because the law basically states if a teacher is tenured and they go to a charter school, then they're automatically tenured. And some of the feedback that I've heard from other charter school leaders is, what they hope to create is, at times the fit isn't right for a traditional teacher moving over, that they don't realize that, the kind of school that they're now going to be teaching in a charter school is just not conducive to the way that they've been teaching, in the past, and they're just not a good fit. So a couple people have raised the opportunity to potentially change existing statutes that was not going to be changed with this teacher tenure bill. But I think we can find some language that allows for there to be a probationary period when a tenured teacher comes into a charter school. If you do have any other feedback for that, something that we're not seeing, please let us know, and we can better write testimony and advocate for what works for charter schools. Collective bargaining master, that has been moving forward in the House, and we have an alternative plan. So picture you see here is a meeting where Roger Takabayashi, his back is facing the camera, myself, Kendra, who is the government relations person for HSTA, and there's the teacher lobbyist, and that's Joan Lewis. Will Okabe, of course, is the president, and the new executive director, Wilbert Holk. And I was just really encouraged about the meeting that we had with them over HB 678, which is the trying to do a master collective bargaining agreement, charter school master agreement, where if it doesn't fit for all of the charter schools, what the charter school could do is then negotiate a supplemental off of that. So after having discussions with them, they were really, really hesitant and was going to, come out in force to block our attempts to have a master agreement because they just want one master. They don't want to see, a second master in their process or in collective bargaining. So what we agreed to at the table was working on 3 outputs. In exchange, we would tell legislators that have been supportive of the bill, especially the chairs, that we would hold off and kind of table the bill until next year. But in the meanwhile, we'll work kind of a pilot with these 3 outputs. One would be a charter school master supplemental to HSTA's DOE master contract that individual schools can opt to further alter to fit individual charter school needs. The second thing was the establishment of a charter school teacher caucus within the governance structure of HSTA, so that HSTA is hearing more of the particular needs of charter school teachers, whether it be flexibilities or whatever, and making sure that the leaders and the decision makers of HSTA have a better idea of where charter school teachers are coming from. And then the third thing, and I asked them if they could have a variety of representatives on that board so that it could be startup charter schools as well as conversion, as well as maybe a project-based teacher or that sort of thing, so that you have an array of representation on in this caucus. The third and last thing was opportunities for charter school teacher conferences or meetings through or in coordination with HSTA. And that was basically saying, we don't have any direct dealings with charter school teachers, and we, as HPCSN can serve as a facilitator to really just help bring charter school governing boards and employees and charter school leaders to the table to have more discussion and better discussion, and maybe pave a way forward on how to better do collective bargaining as a whole. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. It really, the teacher lobbyist, as well as Joan, as well as Wilbert Holt, were very attentive and really open to seeing how we might best serve the needs of charter schools as well as charter school teachers. And Roger Takabayashi was extremely helpful in being there to have that discussion. The other thing is Mitch Dollier, second commissioner, was also helping, but he could not make this particular meeting. So some of the legislator observations that I have for you today is just, we still are getting, comments about Lokahi and maybe some other things like, Piontech and and asking questions not only on how the state or the DOE or whomever are not supporting charter schools, or even the commission. We do get some of that as well when I'm listening to the info briefings and hearings, but we also get the opposite, which is, well, there needs to be more accountability. Look what happened, with Lokahi recently, and all of these things. And I think, the best way that we've been able to talk about what's happening is, telling them about the history, telling them about, look at all of the good things that are happening in charter schools. And we've created an accountability system through the hard work of not just schools, the commission, and legislators, but changed the law for a tighter accountability system. At the same time, it's made it really challenging for schools because there's overburdening paperwork and bureaucracy type things that they're, that suck up resources. And so in their rush to want to answer things like the Lokahi situation, we told them that there is a system of accountability in place. Take a look at the, annual reports to see, even though we're still testing them or testing it, these performance frameworks, that we are still seeing, a lot of transparency and a lot of accountability and some monitoring, a lot of monitoring in it, and help us by not changing the law, not making things even more restrictive than they already are, or burdensome for schools, and let us work through the accountability system issues the way they are right now. So basically asking for status quo, and even some ways where we can improve the situation for charter schools. When we say that these things are working, because, at least we're at this point where, a school that is having very had a very difficult time with managing their finances, that there was action that could be taken, and that there was transparency in seeing those numbers and being able to, pull it to the forefront and take some action. So, we're seeing a lot of good signs because these bills are moving forward. But at the same time, we have to be very mindful that this is a very delicate situation, that we are dealing with 71 legislators, and they don't all feel the same. And we have to manage the way that they think about charter schools, and continue to look for ways to help them understand the challenges that charter schools face, the opportunities for advancement and innovation in charter schools and in public education, and what we can do about it ourselves. And then, the other thing is just sharing with the legislators about all of the successes. And so we're making a huge increase in our efforts during the legislative session with the Flavors of Hawaii's Public Charter Schools, in which you're going to see much more about that in the near future. We do need your participation in that. We also have other things like our, communications that we're ramping up with our newsletters that we'll send out to legislators as well, and our awards that we're doing on a monthly basis that we'll also share with legislators. All of these things have made a positive impact, and has actually created charter school champions in the way that we have, Jill Takuda, who is now in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. There's just a lot of positive things. Sometimes legislators forget, so we're there to remind them. And, we just have to keep on pushing forward to help them realize that charter schools are very positive for public education, and we're doing some quality work with students and learning. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm so sorry that we couldn't take questions today because of, the situation of needing to be at the hearings, as well as my travel. So I will talk to you guys soon. Please send me an email or give me a call if you have any other questions or concerns. But for now, aloha and have a great weekend.